It's a scorching hot day in Mongolia, and Baatar, a nomad in the Dungovi region, is hard at work, pumping water for his animals. The nearby lakes and ponds have all dried up in recent years, and groundwater is also increasingly difficult to reach. Baatar says he used to have to dig only 25 meters to get water. Now he has to dig 100 meters. His complaint is common in many parts of Mongolia. As a result of climate change and human activities, such as overgrazing and deforestation, the world's second largest landlocked country is now covered with deserts. According to UN Development Programme estimates, 90% of Mongolia is fragile dryland, and 70% has been affected by desertification. Expanding deserts suffocate livelihoods and a way of life. Here in Mongolia, desertification directly affects almost half of the population of 2.75 million who are nomads.
Цагаагаар байдал одоо байгаль дэлхийн байдал ч одоо бас ерөөсөө өөрчлөгдлөө. Урд өмнө гарч исэн ургамал гарахаа байсан. Тэ малын дарга яг энэ жилийн хувьд бол борооноогоо болоос яг харьцангуй гайгүй байна. Тийм учраас энэ жил бол мал болоо ерөнхийдөө их гайгүй таргалж байгаа. Энэ өвлийн байдлыг бол ямар ч байсан нэг авчих бол байтал бодож байгаа шүү дээ. Урд жилүүдэд бол яг болцооны байсан цагаа гарц сайхан байлаа. Тийм ээ.
Ganchu Lun lives with his family of 2 children amidst vast open stretches of steppe. His is the typical rural Mongolian lifestyle. Independent life in nearly total wilderness has shaped the self-reliant and rugged individuality of Mongols. But it will not be possible to live out here alone if one did not own livestock. With little water, Mongolian families rely on milk for hydration. The animals also provide wool for clothes, dung for heating, and meat for sustenance. The welfare of the animals are synonymous to the people's own. But for Ganchu Lun and many other nomadic families, 2010 was a particularly bad year. A bone-dry summer in 2009 was followed by a winter of unusually high wind, low temperatures, and heavy snow cover, which left a trail of dead animals. Winter temperatures in many provinces dropped to below minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Гол шалтгаан нь бол одоо 100 намар таргалаагүй. Эцэнхий юу байсан. Тэгээ өвөл их үйтэн байлаа. Тиймээс цаас их орсон. Нэг өнжөөл 2 өнжөөл юм уу тэгэл 2 3 өдөр дараалан цаас орчдөг. Тийм дээрээс л тэгэл нөгөө өдөр нь хоолгүй мал чинь үл даахтаа муухан тэгэл нөгөө зэгээ дурга мал чинь. Тэгэл хичнээн өвс тэжээл авч өгөөд ч тэгэл юу яахгүй л байна.
Only 90 of Ganchu Lun's 300 animals survive the Zud, as Mongolians call this phenomenon of summer droughts combined with harsh winters. Ganchu Lun is considered lucky. Elsewhere, nearly 9,000 families had seen their entire herds freeze or starve to death. The dreaded Zud is nothing new. In recent memory, it struck 3 years in a row, starting in 2000. But the damage from the 2010 Zud is proving to be the worst in decades. The Mongolian government says this year's Zud killed 1/5 of the country's livestock. And the United Nations reckons that as many as 500,000 herders have been affected. Mongolia is already a poor country with 1 in 3 people living below the poverty line and almost 1 in 5 living on less than $1 a day. The Zud pushes the nomads further into hardship.
So өглөө хоньныхоо доотлын ашаан ашааг цэвэрлэл цаас масын тэгэл юучгүй цэвэрлэн л дээ. Нэг ч юм үлдээхгүй. Тэгэл хоноо юу бэлчээчгээл тэгээ өдөр ахаал цэвэрлэн дээр өдөр жил цэвэрлэн л дээ. Юу бол өдөр жил цэвэрлэн. Нэг цай маа ууж байгаа тэгэл ахаал өдөрч. Ахаа үдээс ойс цэвэрлээд орой хонь хотлохдоо тэгэл цэвэрхэн болгочоод хоноо хотлуулаад хашаал. Тэгэл эргэж тэгээд баг 10 11 мэг гээл унтантоо шүн тэгээд цаас шуургатай байвал шүн босч хонь малаа иргэн.
Oranchimek and Ganchu Lun's family have lived in the steppes for as long as they remember. They are descendants of a proud history of nomadism that predates the Genghis Khan era. Occasionally, other nomads drive to their tents and they enjoy a game of wrestling. Weather conditions may be harsh, but the inhabitants enjoy the freedom that the vast wilderness brings. But they do not want such a future for their own children. Both Biemso and Honguazul have been sent to school in a village about 300 kilometers away. They live in the village with their uncle from September to May. They only spend 3 months with their families each year.
Амьдрах баталгаа одоо малчтай одоо амьдрах баталгаач нэр хэцүү боллоо шүү дээ. Юу яаж яа одоо цаг агаар юм байна тийм ийм байхад одоо малтай байхад ч одоо хойч үе малчин болгоно гэдэг халав нөгөө хэдэн мал байгаа ч үгүй ч тийм ээ бас ийм болчиход байгаа юм хэдэн малтай байна гэд байлгаад хөдөө гаргачих бидний залгамж үе гэдэг ингээ гаргачих нь гэхлээр энэ хүүхэд жахаад 1 жилийн 2 жилийн зуудны дараа юу өчгүй бол чинь мэрэгжилж байхгүй сурсан ч юм байхгүй болцол байж идэг тэгээд яг хойд өшөө газар хурж очиод ажил хийе мэрэгжил байхгүй. Ийм болцоо хүүхдүүд ч одоо яаж ажилд авах вэ тийм ээ? Тийм болохоор л одооноос эхэлж мэрэгжил юу вэ тэр аль юутай мэрэгжил юуг сонгуулах гал тэгэл үзчихлээ.
Even before they graduate, it seems the minds of their children are already made up.
Одоо тоочийн чиглэлээр суралцах гэж байгаа. Тэгээ тоочийнхаа чиглэлээр суралцад дуусаад одоо англи хэл юм уу ер нь гадаад хэлээр суурлаа. Тэгээд нэг газар юу томоохон газар ажиллахыг зорж байгаа.
An hour's drive away, we meet another nomad family with similar plans for their kids. The children seem to like it here. The vast grassland is a playground for them as they go around collecting animal dung for cooking and heating. But the father of these kids hope they will eventually perfect their English and move to the city to get a job. He says nomadism as a way of life is becoming too difficult due to climate change. Of Turbat's 380 animals, only 40 remain after the Zud. If more die, he'll have no choice but to migrate to the city. Fortunately, there is an ecotourism initiative that Turbat is involved with, which helps supplement his income. This initiative, known as Gare to Gare, was founded by an American. Gare refers to the traditional tents which the nomads live in.
Gare to Gare, what we try to do is create, for example, this type of like economic stimulus package, through vocational trainings and, linking them with the greater industry. We hope to stabilize, their traditional lifestyle, where it becomes economically incentive for them to stay, rather than having to move into the village or having them to move completely into the city. And so in this particular aspect, we are contributing towards, sustainable tourism in the factor of, being who they are. Be true to, what you do and how you live. And we will try to accommodate, the itineraries to be as such, so that way, you can generate incomes without trying to modify your lifestyle to meet any other type of industry standards or requirements.
Since working with Gare to Gare, Turbat's income has more than doubled. The travellers, on their part, get to experience the nomadic lifestyle, sharing milk tea with their hosts and living in the gares. Tourism is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, It supplements the income of Turbat and his family, helping them preserve their way of life even when climate conditions become unfavorable. On the other hand, it can erode traditions and influence the young to look beyond the grasslands, towards the cities and globalizing world. Mindful of the negative influences, Gare to Gare has tried to address some of them.
We carry out pre-departure trainings. In addition to that, before all locations we open them up, we carry out field assessments, we carry out research works, we carry out training exercises with the communities. In this particular approach is like, okay, this is Mongolia, this is what Mongolians think, this is what Mongolians feel, this is their aspiration, and you have an opportunity to go in the family, to be with the family. And you have an opportunity to absorb this particular cultural aspect, absorb their aspirations, their difficulties, absorb their natural environment, how they live, and then take this home and have something truly unique, which you can't find in any other destination. A truly unique opportunity for cultural ecotourism.
For their work, Gare to Gare was a finalist in the Geotourism Challenge 2009, organized by National Geographic and Ashoka Changemakers. Tourism, implemented mindfully, has been an effective tool to combat poverty. But the scale of the problem here is much larger than what groups of independent travelers can help to resolve. And what's at stake is the rich culture of nomadism. After 70 years of socialism, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia's capital city, is buzzing. Everywhere you look, you will find busy entrepreneurs, large companies getting bigger, and more expatriates. Much of this is powered by the mining industry. Mongolia's mineral resources are enormous, with rich supplies of copper, coal, and gold. The country has recently been discovered to have the world's largest copper mine, expected to provide over $100 billion worth of ore over the next 40 years. Mining profits are causing the rise of a new elite, but there is also much talk about corruption. Even after recent annual growth rates of around 8% in the last decade, the proportion living below the poverty line of $78 a month appears stubbornly unchanged at more than a third. Most of the poor are cluttered in Ulaanbaatar. In the last decade, the population of Ulaanbaatar swelled from 800,000 to almost 1.1 million, with arrivals peaking in the wake of harsh winters. Tens of thousands more are likely to arrive as the consequences of the Zud play out in the next few years. These migrants bring with them their gers, which they set up in the periphery of the city. The gers create a sense of impermanence, as if these once nomadic families may pack up and go. But the reality is, for many, there is no turning back. They have squandered the few animals they have to move to the cities, and they are hard-pressed to find money to buy animals again. It's near impossible to survive out here with no animals to sustain them. Many also quickly realize that life in the city isn't what they expected it to be. In the Bayangol district, at the heart of one of the shanty areas of Ulaanbaatar, residents have to collect water from pump houses and cart them home in plastic barrels. Hot showers can be had at a local bathhouse, though it's too small to accommodate the needs of 11,000 district residents. Heating is a constant challenge, and in desperation, some families tear off the roofs of the houses they are renting to burn for warmth. Atenchemek Ikta is one person living here who dreads winter. The family moved to the slum after Atenchemek's father suffered a brain hemorrhage.
Ер нь яаж хүрдэхгүй. Тэг яг ингээд сургууль цэцэрлэг арах үеэр бас ингээд те бас зээл за тэг зээл ингээд урдныхан зээл нь байлаад авах боломжгүй байлаа гэж ер нь хэцүү. Тэгэл ер нь талаас энэ хүн амьтнаас зээлдэг ч юм уу те тусдаг хүн амьтнаас ер нь голцоо тэгж ер нь яд. Өвлийн цагт бүр хэцүү ялангуяа. Тэ хоол хүнсээ бэлдэх хэцүү, төлөө нүүрс айгүй их орно. Тэр мөрний өвөл ялангуяа хэцүү.
Atenchamek is a single mum with 3 children. Her youngest is only 8 months old. He almost did not survive a serious bout of diarrhea a few months earlier because the family could not afford drugs for him. Diarrheal disease is a common problem in Mongolia, where an estimated 40% of the population lack access to safe drinking water. Child malnutrition and mortality is closely linked to the water shortage. The charity known as Asral stepped in to pay for the drugs the baby needed. Asral is also paying for the children's school fees. Atenchamek wants to get a job, but she needs to care for these kids. She has a brother, but he too has difficulty getting a job after an accident 6 years ago which left him crippled.
Би чинь 15 настай байсан. Тэгээд тэр үед одоо төлөө нүүрсний тим зорилгоор явж байсан. Маань нөгөө бас талд сарваад тэгээд би мутаалцсан. Ажлын чадваргүй тэгээд ганцхан ээж маань ажилдаг. Тэгээд амьдралын боломжгүйгээс тэгж явж байгаа. Тэгээд нэг шүн явж байсан юм аа. Тэгээд явж байгаа богоон дээр гарах гэжсэн. Гүгөт гарах гэжсэн. Тэгээд жоохон хазгаа газар байсан болохоор альтраад тэгээд богоон доор.
Amar Jagal's left leg was severed at the ankle by the moving train, but he is determined to overcome his disability and contribute to the family income.
Одоо ирээдүйд одоо тэгэл юугаа жолоогоо төгсчөөл тэгэл нэг унах ханаатай болчоол тэгэл гадууртаа нэг такси максимд явдаг ч юм уу тиймэрхүү санаатай.
For now, the family survives on the $50 which Atenchimek's mum gets as a cleaner every month. Her father and brother receives a disability payout of about $25 each. But $100 is barely enough for the family's needs.
Энэ бүхэн дэр нь голцоо өөргөл дэр нь буруутгах тэгэл та. Хэрэг би хүний зөв болоод ингээд зөв үнтэй амьдэрсэн бол миний хүүхдүүд ингэж явахгүй. Гэхдээ би бас нэг тэгэж яа гэж боддог. Би хэрэг сэтгэлээр унаад байвал хүүхдүүд маань бас тийхэн. Тэгээд тийм учраас бас хүүхдүүдээс нэг мэддэггүй те. Тэгээд хүүхдтэйгээ заавал тэгээд юм болохгүй бүтггүй нэг хайдгүй л те. Бас энэ тэрэгэл тослох хүмүүс юу вэ? Ингээд тэгээд хайгаад ер нь явдаг.
Just a few houses away lives 47-year-old Kazan, also a single mum trying her best to raise 4 children. Many of the impoverished here are single-parent households. Life used to be a constant struggle for Kazan until she found a job at the social enterprise MIM, run by Azral.
Өмнө ч яг би нөгөө эдлийн үйлдвэрт ажиллаад хэн тэнд ажиллаад байсан шүү дээ. Тэгэл сүүлд нь ажилгүй байж байгаа л бидний насны ус ажил олдохгүй болохоор тэгэл асралт очиж ажилд ороод та насралт ажилд орсноос хойш аваа нөгөө тогтмол нөгөө мөнгө өгдөг болохоор энэ идэж жоох юм аваад тэр үеэр болоо.
Kazan used to make $50 a month at the sewing company. She now makes 3 times that amount. With the money, she has put her 3 children through school. Kazan says her job brings her great satisfaction. Besides the stable income, she's also helping to preserve the Mongolian art of felting. Felting is an ancient tradition of creating a strong and sturdy, non-woven fabric from wool. To achieve this, soap and water is used to bind the layers of wool together. The resultant felt is then sewed into various products for export all over the world. A total of 37 people from the slum district are employed in this project. They are all disadvantaged women.
Mimis actually was a very small sewing project. So what Mim were doing is first, it was just teaching women how to make embroideries, how they can refresh the traditional skills they used to have, you know. And then at the same time, you try to care about their personal problems as well, you know. So many women had lots of problems, how they can send the kids for the kindergarten, and even some women were struggling. They don't have a home, you know, to live in. So for these, Mim is not really dealing with all the business problems. It also deals with the personal difficulties and household difficulties which they are trying to tackle with.
To help more women living in these slums, MIM hopes it can expand its business globally. But for now, the social enterprise has not yet turned a profit and is relying on foreign aid to keep afloat. In the meantime, up to 30,000 people are arriving in the capital city each year looking for work. Mongolia's billions of dollars worth of copper, gold, uranium and coal reserves promise the greatest influx of wealth for the country since the Genghis Khan era. But it can also leave this sparsely populated country relatively unchanged. Sudden prosperity may not improve living standards. Nigeria and Venezuela are amongst the biggest oil exporters in their region, but their GDP per capita has seen little change. To beat the resource curse, the Mongolian government has proposed a law that would save surplus revenue from mineral royalties when prices are high to stabilize the budget when they fall. Mindful of the votes of the poor, the government also set up a Human Development Fund in 2009. This is modeled on an Alaskan program that distributes some royalties to citizens. The country is also overhauling its social welfare system to direct aid only to the poor. And it also plans to improve roads and railroads, creating access to new mines and helping herders bring cattle and sheep to market. Whether these plans will be put into action in the coming years remain to be seen. But in many remote parts, these plans are unheard of. The nomads continue to rely on their own means as they battle against the forces of nature. The Cordillera region, located in the Philippines, is often referred to as the eighth wonder of the world. This structure of rice terraces, carved out of steep mountain terrain, has been in existence for over 2,000 years. No data exists on the land area covered by these rice terraces, but it has often been said that if placed end to end, they would encircle half the globe. The terrace ponds were made by leveling the mountain and then constructing a mud wall which was reinforced with rocks and clay. An irrigation system was also put in place to feed the terraces with water, which is essential for rice cultivation. Its beauty and ingenuity has enthralled anthropologists, explorers, tourists, and Filipinos from other regions. The government here has declared it a national landmark, while UNESCO placed several terraces here on the World Heritage List in 1995 in recognition of its outstanding universal value. But for all the admiration of these terraces, it did not prevent many of them from falling into disrepair. In the year 2000, it was estimated that 30% of the terraces in the region had been left to be reclaimed by the wild. the rice fields had been upstaged by a monetized economy. Formerly, these fields had mainly been for feeding the family, and there was no money to be made from its produce and no market developed for this rice. But in recent decades, the locals started to find that farming wasn't enough. They found themselves cash-strapped to pay for things like education, healthcare, and consumer goods. Houses made of straw were increasingly being replaced by those constructed with metal sheets, and the sheets cost money. In the days of their grandparents, wealth was measured by the number of rice fields one owned. Now, wealth was measured by cash. So many left for the cities in search of better fortunes. In one of the provinces in the Cordilleras known as Ifugao, more than half of the estimated 3 million people who used to live there are now found outside the province. And so rice fields maintained for more than 2,000 years grew wild again. Among those who left was Linda Bindadan, who bid farewell to the Batad terraces where she grew up and moved to Manila at the age of 20. She was the only person in the family of 7 to leave. Linda had some trepidations at first, as this was a lone venture. But the money she was going to make would help sustain the rest of the family.
Ot na limit lang si nga sini mumpayet. Kihin lang na nga sini na tourist guide. Iya kumita. Ngamno sita nga sini an manalon niya. Mi tun nga neme lang han talunon niya me lang sa umali anon.
Linda worked as a sales girl in a department store for 3 years, and then worked in a garment factory for the next 7 years. But when she had her first child and had to stay home to take care of her daughter, her husband's salary was not enough to pay for rent in Manila and feed the family. Linda came back to the Cordilleras region and started farming again. Life was hard, having to climb up and down the steep terraces 3 times a day. It's also backbreaking work, sifting through mud in search of pests, such as these snail eggs, which could destroy her crop. But Linda had no complaints. Here she didn't have to starve, wasn't pressured by her landlord, and most importantly, she could be with her daughter. Her husband worked in a mine away from the family between 2003 and 2006 to help pay the bills. And back then, the family only got together once a month. In 2006, Linda received an interesting proposition. An NGO called Rice Inc. was willing to buy her rice. Before that, her rice was only for subsistence. Not only did Linda receive cash, she also got about double the prevailing price for rice. This was possible because the NGO Rice Inc. was selling the produce in the United States, where consumers were willing to pay a premium for organic rice.
Oh, nakatulong niya. Ang orchi pasalamat. Taiwan na imali hi. Ura kaspas ano ya lumao hi. Nansobraan in talom toyo balintun ilaon hiya. Ilao rice ing. Ta isupay hi ko hi pumpayet tuwino usaronton o may score.
From the money made with the sale of the rice, they were able to build a house and afford running water and electricity. The family sleeps together in one bed, and meals are prepared using firewood over an open stove. It gets cold in here during winter, but at least there is always enough to eat. Rice from the annual harvest usually lasts the family the entire year, even after commercial sales. And Linda's husband no longer needs to work in a mine. Just upstairs, Linda has constructed a provision shop, initially selling only drinks, but now it stocks candy, biscuits, household products, and soft drinks. And it has become somewhat of a neighborhood hangout.
Masaya ako ngayong magsasaka kaysa noong sales lady ako. Kaya hindi ko nababalikan yung pagsa-sales lady dahil mas kontento pa ako ngayong magsasaka with my family. Tapos doon na namin nakukuha lahat ng aming mga pambili, panggamit, panggastos sa bahay at gamit sa school at saka itong konting puhunan ko sa tinda-tindahan. Kaya ngayon mas masaya ako dito sa aking pagsasaka with my families.
Rice Inc. helps over 500 farmers like Linda in the region sell their produce. Their efforts not only help to lift rural poverty, but it preserves the heritage and environment of the Cordilleras region. When farmers receive a fair price for their produce, they remain here to take care of their terraces instead of migrating to the cities. Helping farmers access overseas markets sounds like a simple solution, but it is actually no easy feat. The region, with its undulating terrain, has limited roads, making transportation a challenge. It is not uncommon to hike for hours, sometimes even days in some of the more remote areas to access the market. There is also a severe lack of educated professionals here who understand the workings of the international market economy. Vicky Garcia, the co-founder of Rice Inc., is herself from the capital city, Manila. She used to work in refugee camps, and though she is well versed in developmental work, helping farmers in inaccessible terrains was not part of her plans. After completing her master's degree in the United States, she was helping her classmate look for locals from the region to run Rice Inc. But they couldn't find anyone to rise to the challenge.
During the time that we were conducting our feasibility study, we have not identified anyone interested. There were many organizations, and I do not want to name names of these organizations, but we offered it to them. We offered it to them, but they seem to be that this is an impossible impossible dream, or it is an impossible activity, because number one, this is a subsistence farming. No one would have that volume. No one would be able to sell it to us. All of the impossibilities were narrated to us.
But Vicky didn't give up. She took the plan to the farmers and got an enthusiastic response. And since no local professionals wanted the job, the 50-year-old rolled up her sleeves and did it herself.
At this point in time, anyone who would like to be nearing their retirement age, all you want to do is to make your life a little less miserable or a little less difficult. But the more I go to my senior years, the more difficult it requires of me to do this job. I'm physically challenged by this job. This terrain in the Cordillera would require me to go down uphill and downhill and go through the far-flung villages, go where the farmers are. I have to hike for hours, and this is physically giving me difficulty. I have polio since my toddler years, and I never thought that I will be going this way. And now, that is the challenge. It hurts me after I hike and go to the villages, but I sort of like past that the stage of being in pain when I look at the farmers and how much impact it is that I'm able to do with them when I'm talking to them. Like I see their faces light whenever I'm showing them that there's an opportunity for you to see the vision, and when they catch the vision, it feels like, oh, I think it's worth it anyway for the sacrifices that I am doing. But on my own, I am really in pain each time I go, every 2 weeks, every month, on a regular basis for the last 5 years doing this and trying to organize the farmers at the grassroots level.
Polio survivors often suffer muscle and tendon pain and acute overstresses in their joints. It is no different for Vicky, who has to grit her teeth as she climbs up and down to meet with the farmers. She is slated to undergo hip replacement surgery soon because of her work here. But the zesty 50-year-old is not taking it any slower till she achieves her vision of revitalizing rice farming in the Cordillera region. The farmers here have symbolically adopted her as a daughter of the soil. And now more than ever, Vicky is bonded to the preservation of this rich heritage of rice farming. Rice, the staple food of most Asians, is an extremely labor-intensive plant to grow. Seedlings are sown, then transplanted one by one to ensure equal spacing in the fields. Crop management includes weeding by hand, the repair of the irrigation system, and the fight against more than 30 different species of insects and animals, and more than 10 different types of plant diseases. Harvesting is also hard work, with hours spent under the scorching heat. Most farmers say they rarely get any rest days till harvest. Yet despite all the hard work, the output is unreliable. An entire crop can be destroyed by fungal infections or adverse weather conditions. And with climate change, farmers are increasingly faced with uncertainty. In 2010, it did not rain in Ifugao in northern Philippines for over 4 months. Cracked fields bear scars of what some village elders say is the worst drought in over 50 years. Desperate, the farmers turn to religion, praying to a Christian god and their local rice god Balor at the same time.
Yapeman apo Diyos, tonglam tuan dasar di hinuhain jami, inilam apo Diyos di kasapulan di hinuhain jami, yanan hanani apo Diyos ta iluwang muna ni tanong ni umaki pisti, dan paten di pagi ta tonhun apina an waday arninyo ang mamaki ami apo Diyos an kapuhnaan homok mo yakot kang mo ipari mahudan tawagin an masipugan na an intanom mi tuah iilog mi an umari ang mga daydayo hangadang mo. At apo Diyos tongdom tundasami.
Balor is always depicted with folded arms to symbolize that he is watching over the rice farmers. But it seems Balor is powerless in the face of global warming. The lack of rain not only prevents certain varieties of the rice crop from growing, it also causes cracks in the rocks, leading to collapse of rice terraces. On the other hand, when rain arrives in torrents after a long drought, it enters directly into the deep cracks that have appeared, causing landslides such as the ones here and claiming lives. While farmers were used to gentle rains consistently over the year before, they now often have to deal with extreme weather conditions. About 20 typhoons hit the Philippines annually, and local experts say wind speeds have increased over the past 30 years from 100 km/h storms to double that speed of late. In 2009, more than 700 people died, and at least 6 million were displaced, first by tropical storm Quetzana, which reached Manila on September 26, and then by Typhoon Palma, which encircled for a week over northern Luzon Island and inundated communities, roads, and fields in the country's breadbasket. Losses to agriculture are estimated at $400 million. Considering that the rice crop cycle happens about 2 times a year, or in higher altitudes only once, the destruction of the crops would wipe out farmers' income for an entire year. But it's only farmers who suffer. Rice accounts for more than 40% of the calorie consumption of most Asians. Poor people spend as much as 30 to 40% of their income on rice alone. If the price goes up when supplies come down, it's the poor who will suffer the most. Malnutrition is a problem in the Philippines, which is currently the largest rice importer in the world. A 2009 report from the United Nations Children's Fund estimated that around 3 million children in the Philippines are suffering from stunted growth because pregnant mums are undernourished and there isn't enough food to go around. PhilRice, a national agency, has been tasked to achieve self-sufficiency in rice for the country. And helping farmers deal with climate changes is an important aspect of its work.
If you trace the movements of typhoons and map them in a map, the Philippine map disappears because of the traces of the typhoons. We simply have to adapt to it. So in some instances, we will have to advise the farmers to maybe time their planting and harvesting during months where there are lesser typhoons. But technologically, we can develop varieties that can be harvested earlier. So maybe 100 days, 90 days, so that they can avoid the drought situation at the end of the planting season.
Phil Rice has also developed local rice varieties that are flood resistant. Rice crops usually die after being fully submerged in water for more than 2 days, but international scientists have managed to identify a rice species in India which can withstand submergence. Scientists at the International Rice Research Institute have mapped the molecular markers of this variety. And Phil Rice scientists then crossed these markers with local varieties through a process of introgression. With introgression, genes of the submergence-resistant rice species is incorporated into the gene pool of Filipino native species of rice. The result is flood-resistant rice, which suits the local growth environment. The costs of such seeds are similar to other certified seeds in the market, as the research is state subsidized. Phil Rice is also studying a drought-resistant variety, but it says the genetic markers of such varieties are more complex. Besides laboratory work, Phil Rice also sends its officers to the fields to help farmers learn other forms of technology. Through the analysis of leaf color, for example, farmers like Robin Echinik know when exactly to apply fertilizers. In the past, farmers apply fertilizers at fixed intervals, but research demonstrates that the crop can lose up to 50% of the fertilizer applied due to improper time of application. The color of the leaves will demonstrate the plant's nitrogen need, and this simple technology increases yield and saves farmers money in fertilizer purchase. During the Green Revolution, a common fertilizer was also used in many farms. But scientists have found that soils differ greatly, and fertilizers should be more targeted to reduce fertilizer waste. So Phil Rice has developed a simple soil testing kit, which costs about $6. Farmers mix their soils and put in 7 different pots with different fertilizer formulations. Seedlings are transplanted, and 45 days later, the pot with the least growth would demonstrate what nutrient the soil is deficient in. In this case, the soil is short of sulfur and nitrogen. So instead of buying the standard fertilizer mix, Robin can cut costs and buy just the fertilizers he needs. Through these kinds of technologies, among others, Robin has managed to increase his yield substantially. In 2008, he harvested 8,900 kilograms of rice. In 2009, after attending a farmer field school organized by Phil Rice, he harvested about 12,500 kilograms. That's a 40% increase, and with the additional money, Robin was able to purchase land for building his own home. His is the only concrete house in his village.
Ang mga technologies na nitiro ng mga Phil Rice ay malaking bagay sa mga magsasaka dahil naiaangat ang kabuhayan ng mga magsasaka dahil tumataas ang mga ani ng palay sa mga makabagong teknolohiya ng pagsasaka na itinuturo ng Phil Rice.
More money also translates into village luxuries like a fridge, television, and tasty side dishes for the entire family. During special occasions, the rental of karaoke machines are also a must for the entire village, so everyone can have a good time in this country, which loves old American ballads with a passion.
As you love me from the start, with every beat of your heart.
The success of farmers like Robin has implications beyond his own village. Many farmers complain of being caught in a poverty trap. With their small farm size, they are only able to feed their own families with little surplus for sale. But simple and cost-effective technology, such as better seeds and proper fertilization, is now allowing farmers to increase their yields. Currently, most farms have an average yield of around 3.8 tons of rice per hectare, which is less than half of the yield being achieved in experimental farms with the right technology, irrigation systems, and planting conditions applied. There is certainly plenty of room for improvement, but to do so requires government commitment. Besides developing new technologies, distributing quality seeds, and educating farmers, irrigation needs must also be addressed. But such infrastructural investment is costly, and the government is under intense pressure to cut the budget deficit. However, not investing in rice production could be even more costly for the government in the long run. In 2010, it was reported that the Philippines imported 2.45 million tons of rice, with rice trading around $500 per ton. That works out to over $1.2 billion. Money which can go a long way in this impoverished country. The Philippines is the largest importer of rice in the world. Memories of starvation and riots back in 2008, when rice prices reached a record $1,080 per ton, is still fresh in the minds of many. And this is what makes helping farmers like Robin and Linda all the more urgent. The Philippines has an ambitious target of self-sufficiency in rice by 2013. And it will need many more success stories of farmers to make that target a reality. This is the choir of the My La refugee camp. The camp is located in Thailand across the border from Burma, which was renamed Myanmar by the ruling military junta in 1989. These singers were all able-bodied before. They lost their limbs due to the civil war, which has been ongoing in Burma since 1962.
Photo for the pa ma to to no ni pomu to no ti madror pa to no du ti ma sao to no du ti photo ma glu.
20-year-old Ma Pu says his parents were both killed by the junta. He was living in the jungle with his siblings, where he faced the perpetual threat of landmines. Newspapers in Burma report more than 10,000 landmine survivors in 2006. After the landmine incident, Ma Pu escaped to the Mae La refugee camp in Thailand. Today there are an estimated 160,000 refugees, mostly Karen, living in fenced-up refugee camps like these. The Karen are an ethnic minority in Burma. In World War II, they fought alongside the British against the Japanese invasion. In return, they were promised an independent homeland for their children. But when Britain granted Burma independence, the promise was forgotten. And since then, the junta has been trying to quash the Karen separatist movement for over 4 decades. The conflict between the Myanmar government and the Karen is considered to be the longest-running civil war in the world, and it has become somewhat of a forgotten story. Refugees at Mae La camp have been living here for more than 25 years. An entire generation of people have grown up here. David, for example, attended school run by an NGO within the confines of the camp. Despite being educated, he doesn't think he will be able to get a job. As refugees, it is illegal for people like David to work in Thailand. His parents also do not want him to return to Burma, as it is unsafe. But having lived within the compounds of a camp all his life, David has other views. Being unable to work, all the people in Mae La camp are given weekly rations. Food and shelter is paid for by the Thailand-Burma Border Consortium, or the TBBC. This is a group of 12 international non-governmental organizations from 10 countries. Their funding depends entirely on donors.
The problem with the economic recession, and also the problem of the world economic and all things like that, reduce a lot of the donors, donations. So I think this affects all the NGOs, all the different groups, including TBBC, which is responsible for supplying the needs for the people, the basic need for the people. And all, like for medical also, they have to redo, or what you call it, many of the program, the project. So, and also the money, the budget that they have to cut the budget in so many ways. Yeah.
A budget cut means less people are being sent to the hospitals every week. Before, an average of 5 people visited the hospitals in town every week. Now there is only money for 1 or 2 people, and their illness needs to be absolutely critical. A budget cut also means there has been less food for the people living here.
We get food by TBPC, this Thai Burmese Border Consortium. They provided rice, 15 kilo per month, also charcoal, wine, cooking wine, salt and chili, like that. Also sugar they provided every month.
Is it enough?
Some families they are enough, but most of them they are not enough because there are more relatives who come and stay with them, so they are not enough because the new arrival arrived, they cannot get ration, so they are not enough.
Do you ever get meat?
No, not meat.
The situation is frustrating, to say the least. The refugees are hungry, but they cannot provide for themselves despite being educated and able to work.
They have strength, they have energy, they go to walk, want to walk. And also some of them, they have education, good education, but they are not allowed to go out and walk. Just because of that, they feel, some of them they be discouraged about their life, their future. This place is but like a village, but on the other hand, like a big prison like that, because we cannot go out. Only restriction is that we cannot go out. We cannot do that outside. If we go outside, we find the vegetables or go and get bamboos outside the camp. They are forbidden. We cannot go and cut. We cannot go outside like that. So like a prison.
Thailand has hosted more than 150,000 refugees who have crossed these rivers. Thai officials have helped to provide refugees with food and basic shelter. And every year, Thai security forces allow more new refugees to cross the border safely. But should Burmese refugees be allowed to compete for jobs with Thai people? Views are divided on this. Many Burmese are already living and working in Thailand illegally, bribing their way out of trouble. And while people like Winner are frustrated with the employment situation, he also acknowledges the generosity of the Thais. Winner believes the only solution is political change in Burma.
I want to say that only the international community just have Burma getting changed, because nowadays most of the Burmese peoples are live in their country, so live in the neighboring country like Thailand, also like on the western side is like Bangladesh or India. They go out and walk in the other country as illegal immigrants. So not only that, fighting is stayed in Burma, especially Civil War, is stay going 62 years. Civil War is going, so have Burma to stop fighting, have Burma to get democracy, so want to go back and live in our country peacefully.
In recent years, the United Nations Refugee Agency has helped to resettle some 65,000 of the Karen refugees in countries such as the United States, Denmark and Sweden. But the number represents a fraction of those who need help.
If you are registered, if you have the UN registration number, if you are registered, then it means you are eligible. You can apply for resettlement to the third country. But many people, there are quite a few people, they want to go there because they know they're living in the camp for many years where you have no chance of no freedom. So they want to go to the third country where they can live freely, or for their children to get better education or things like that. No? But many people, they think they know very well that resettling in a third country is not also the solution to the problem, because anywhere you live in the world you have problem, and worse is if you cannot speak the language, you have to deal with a new language, new culture, and everything new. You have to start life from the beginning. So it's really very difficult, and also many people, they feel like they don't want to go.
For the thousands of Burmese in Thailand, uncertainty clouds their future. There is no indication that the political situation in Burma will change, or that Thailand will rethink its policy towards refugees. Burmese children are a common sight in the Thai town of Mae Sot. Pache works together with his older brother, Julafi, and their other friends. They each make about $1 a day selling the garbage to recycling companies. They all have similar stories. Their parents cannot work as they are illegal immigrants. And the police tend to leave the juveniles alone, so the young boys have become responsible for providing for their family. Social workers say that Julafi and Pache come from a loving family. Their parents try to find work to provide for the children, but they are constantly being arrested. Their father, Kiao U, took a loan to purchase a rickshaw, but it got damaged when he was arrested, and now the family is struggling to repay the loan. The family left Burma 8 years ago. Life in Thailand may be difficult, but they feel it's still better compared to Burma.
ဒါပေမဲ့လည်းဒီမှာပြန်ထွက်လာတော့ထမင်းစာစား6တော့လွယ်တော့ပေါ့ဟိုမှာကျတော့ငွေစီးမှစာစားလို့ရမယ်အဲ့ဒီနေရာအချက်နှစ်ချက်กว่าတော့ထိုင်းမှာနေဖို့စိတ်ကူးများတော့
His sons, however, have a different view. They are not even in their teens, but they are acutely aware of the disadvantages of being stateless.
ထိုင်းနိုင်ငံမှာတော့ခက်တယ်ထိုင်းနိုင်ငံမှာစားတယ်မိုင်းမှာแล้วกูไม่มากูนี่จิထိုင်းမှာကျတော့စားတော့မခက်ခဲတိတ်နည်းနည်းပါမိုင်းမှာကျတော့ခက်ခဲတော့
Just how bad is the situation in secretive Burma? Nobody really knows because the junta has barred journalists and banned human rights workers. But the fact that Burmese arrive in thousands to live in the slums and work in the dumps indicate that the situation is desperate. In a dump near the border, the Burmese pick through the garbage to look for food. The air here is thick with poisonous fumes coming out of decomposing materials. Babies lay next to mountains of waste, and children play amidst broken glass.
ပြန်လဲမမျှော်လင့်စရာဒီဘလို့ဒီမျိုးကိုဒီထိုင်းနေကမှာဆရာ20စီးတယ်ထမင်းစားတာမှပြီးမှ20စီးစားတော့ရတာမဟုတ်ဆရာ7,000လောက်စီးမှထမင်းစားတာနောက်တော့လေဦးရင်းဘယ်လိုပြောမလဲဆိုတော့ဒီမှာတမျိုးနေရစားတယ်လေရောပတ်စံဘတ်50လောက်စီးရင်တနေ့စားလို့ရတယ်မှပြီးမှ2,000-3,000စီးမှထုံဝန်းစားတာမိတအုပ်စားရတယ်ပြန်မို့ဆိုတော့မစင်းစားတော့ဘူးဆရာကောင်းမှပြီးမှဒီမိုကရေစီမရဘူးတော်တော်လည်းမပြန်တော့ဒီမှာပဲနေတော့
Mabite and her family have been living in the dump for 13 years. She travels back to Burma every other year to visit family and see if she can return. But she says life here in the dump, where there are no toilets, no electricity, and a constant stench in the air, is better than Burma.
ပြန်မို့ပြောဆရာရဲ့သူဘာလဲနေရကြာတော့မသိမပြန်ချင်တော့ဘူးသူများနဲ့ကမှပျော်သွားပြီစကားပြောနေဟိုဘယ်လိုပြောမလဲတချို့တော့မသိဘူးနော်သူများတော့ဆရာကျမတော့နေရကြာတော့လေခဏပဲပြန်ရင်၄-၅ရက်ပြန်လာမှာဒီနိုင်ငံမှာထိုင်းနိုင်ငံမှာပျော်တယ်သူများနိုင်ငံမှာပျော်တယ်
Mabite and others living in the dump cannot afford medical care, yet they are constantly exposed to disease. The NGO Compasio has been critical in this regard. They provide free healthcare to the people here.
For us right now, the focus has been medical because the obvious needs when you come in, there are cuts and infections and sick people living in the midst of rubbish. The things that are discarded here are like any city dump. So we have everything from needles to dirty diapers, nappies, and rotting meat. And so when you have children, I mean, as you see, the flies are landing all over us as you have children in the midst of that. One of the most critical things we've seen is to address the medical needs. So one of the things we want to do is we come in not as just as providers of help, but really as people that want to show that that we are able to relate, that we want to establish friendships and really see how we can lift up their spirits, their sense of dignity as well. It's very important.
NGOs have been absolutely critical to the survival of hundreds of thousands of refugees. They provide shelter to babies abandoned in the markets. They provide food to thousands who are going hungry. And they provide education to students who cannot afford to pay. There are hundreds of NGOs located in the Thai-Burma border, and most of them struggle with fundraising. The Elpis School is one such example.
เรามีปัญหาเรื่องเกี่ยวกับจัดการระบบการศึกษากับเรื่องการซัพพอร์ตบ้างเพราะว่าปัจจุบันนี้เราจำเป็นต้องหาเงินมาเพื่อที่จะใช้จ่ายในค่าอาหารประจำวันให้กับเด็กซึ่งเราจำเป็นที่จะต้องดูแลรับผิดชอบเด็กถึง340คนและก็ครูอีก11คนดังนั้นเองงบประมาณที่เราใช้ก็จึงมีอย่างจำกัดเราได้รับการบริจาคบ้างจากบุคคลภายนอกแต่ก็ยังไม่เพียงพอสำหรับค่าใช้จ่ายเช่นค่าน้ำมันรถ ค่าคนขับรถค่าครูรวมไปถึงค่าอาหารประจำวันในแต่ละเดือนซึ่งดังนั้นเองเราไม่เรียกว่านี่เป็นปัญหาแต่ว่ามันก็เป็นสิ่งที่ยากต่อการที่จะทำให้โรงเรียนดำเนินไปได้อย่างดี
Teachers here are paid $100 a month. The school has 340 students. Some of the students are living in their teachers' homes, as they are here in Thailand without their parents. Their parents in Burma had forced them to come here themselves, as they have no chance of an education in Burma.
They cannot go to school, and if they go to school, they have to pay money very expensive, and some the SPDC soldier, they want the boys and let they carry the gun like that, and the parent let they come to Thailand.
Hey too shares her own home with 15 children at no charge. Her $100 pay goes towards food for the kids. Their house has no electricity and there are no beds. But the kids consider it a safe haven compared to their own homes. And every year more friends join them to make the journey across the border.
They come with the friend. When they go back to Burma, and the next year when they come, and they contact me, they call me. The teacher, I want my son study, and they say, we have a problem, and they tell me a problem. Okay, no problem. Yeah, they come like that. But sure, the parent is black or what, I can't see. I never see the parent.
It is likely that many of these children will continue to stay in Thailand, separated from their families. Despite its meager resources, Elpis School is determined to prepare these children for the future.
หลังจากที่เขาจบจากโรงเรียนนี้แล้วถ้าไม่ได้รับการฝึกฝนอาชีพนั้นเด็กส่วนมากก็จะต้องเข้าไปทำงานอยู่ในโรงงานเย็บผ้าเด็กบางคนนั้นก็อาจจะถูกชักชวนไปทำงานอยู่ที่กรุงเทพถ้าเป็นเด็กผู้หญิงบางคนอาจจะต้องถูกล่อลวงไปขายตัวแต่ถ้าเป็นเด็กผู้ชายก็อาจจะถูกล่อลวงไปลงเรือไปซึ่งบางคนนั้นไม่มีโอกาสได้กลับมาอาจจะเสียชีวิตอยู่ในกลางทะเลหรือแม้ก็อาจจะถูกจับซึ่งนี่คือสาเหตุหนึ่งที่เราจำเป็นที่จะต้องเปิดโรงเรียนฝึกอาชีพให้กับเด็กๆและก็อีกประการหนึ่งก็คือว่าแม้ว่าเขาจะทำงานอยู่ในแม่สอดถ้าไม่ได้รับการฝึกฝนอาชีพอย่างดีนั้นเขาก็จะได้รับค่าแรงงานตอบแทนต่ำมากต่อวันหนึ่งซึ่งดังนั้นเองเราจึงจำเป็นที่จะให้เขาได้มีความรู้ก่อนที่จะไปสู่ยังโรงงานถ้าหากว่าเขาได้มีความรู้การศึกษาในด้านการฝึกอาชีพเขาก็จะสามารถที่จะได้รับแรงงานที่สูงขึ้นและอีกประการหนึ่งก็คือว่าสาเหตุที่เราต้องฝึกก็คือว่าเขาไม่สามารถที่จะกลับไปสู่ประเทศพม่าได้เพราะว่าหนึ่งนั้นสถานการณ์ในประเทศพม่าก็ยังมีการรบกันและก็เด็กผู้ชายบางคนนั้นเมื่อโตมาหลังจากที่เขากลับไปประเทศพม่าแล้วเขาจะถูกเกณฑ์ไปเป็นลูกหาบเพื่อที่จะแบกหรือขนอาวุธให้กับทางรัฐบาลพม่าและก็เด็กผู้หญิงนั้นเมื่อเขากลับไปยังประเทศพม่านั้นบางคนนั้นอาจจะได้รับการข่มเหงทางด้านเรื่องเพศเพราะว่าไม่มีความปลอดภัยสำหรับเด็กเหล่านี้จึงไม่มีเด็กคนไหนที่อยากจะกลับในประเทศพม่า
Human smuggling gangs are known to be in operations in Thailand, according to the US State Department. Thailand has put in place anti-trafficking legislation in 2008, but enforcement has been problematic. Globally, more than 12 million people were victims of sex trafficking and forced labor in 2009. Stateless and without protection, refugees like these Burmese children become easy prey for smugglers.